Welcome to A Year of War and Peace. I'm your host, Brian E. Denton. A Year of War and Peace is a daily, year-long, chapter-by-chapter reading of and meditation on Leo Tolstoy's epic novel, War and Peace. In these videos and podcasts, you'll be treated to a free reading of one chapter per day of the novel, plus a reflective essay I've written individually tailored to that day's chapter. These readings are offered for free, though if you'd like to support me, you can do so in one of three ways. First, you could purchase my ebook, A Year of War and Peace. It features the entire novel, plus all of my reflective essays, and it's only $2.99 on Amazon.com. You could also become a patron at patreon.com/Brian E. Denton. If you sign up there, you'll receive a sonnet once a month, plus a link to an ebook of my collected sonnets. Finally, if you like, you can make a one-time donation to my PayPal account. The email there is brianedenton@gmail.com. You can also use that email to contact me. I'd be happy to hear from you. Your support is greatly appreciated. Today's reading is of Chapter 37 and a reflection on the same. Chapter 37. At the levee, Prince Andrew stood among the Austrian officers as he had been told to, and the Emperor Francis merely looked fixedly into his face and just nodded to him with his head. But after it was over, the adjutant he had seen the previous day ceremoniously informed Bolkonsky that the Emperor desired to give him an audience. The Emperor Francis received him standing in the middle of the room. Before the conversation began, Prince Andrew was struck by the fact that the Emperor seemed confused and blushed, as if not knowing what to say. "Tell me, when did the battle begin?" he asked hurriedly. Prince Andrew replied. Then followed other questions just as simple. Was Kutuzov well? When had he left Krems? And so on. The Emperor spoke as if his sole aim were to put a given number of questions. The answer to these questions, as was only too evident, did not interest him. "At what o'clock did the battle begin?" asked the Emperor. "I cannot inform your Majesty at what o'clock the battle began at the front, but at Durenstein, where I was, our attack began after 5 in the afternoon," replied Bolkonsky, growing more animated and expecting that he would have a chance to give a reliable account, which he had ready in his mind, of all he knew and had seen. But the Emperor smiled and interrupted him. "How many miles?" "From where to where, your Majesty?" "From Durenstein to Krems." 3.5 miles, your Majesty." "The French have abandoned the left bank?" "According to the scouts, the last of them crossed on rafts during the night." "Is there sufficient forage in Krems?" "Forage has not been supplied to the extent—" The Emperor interrupted him. "At what o'clock was General Schmidt killed?" "At 7 o'clock, I believe." "At 7 o'clock? It's very sad, very sad." The Emperor thanked Prince Andrew and bowed. Prince Andrew withdrew, and was immediately surrounded by courtiers on all sides. Everywhere he saw friendly looks and heard friendly words. Yesterday's adjutant reproached him for not having stayed at the palace, and offered him his own house. The Minister of War came up and congratulated him on the Maria Theresa Order of the 3rd grade, which the Emperor was conferring on him. The Empress's chamberlain invited him to see Her Majesty. The Archduchess also wished to see him. He did not know whom to answer, and for a few seconds collected his thoughts. Then the Russian ambassador took him by the shoulder, led him to the window, and began to talk to him. Contrary to Bilibin's forecast, the news he had brought was joyfully received. A Thanksgiving service was arranged. Kutuzov was awarded the Grand Cross of Maria Theresa, and the whole army received rewards. Bolkonsky was invited everywhere, and had to spend the whole morning calling on the principal Austrian dignitaries. Between 4 and 5 in the afternoon, having made all his calls, he was returning to Bilibin's house, thinking out a letter to his father about the battle and his visit to Brünn. At the door he found a vehicle half full of luggage. Franz, Bilibin's man, was dragging a portmanteau with some difficulty out from the door. Before returning to Bilibin's, Prince Andrew had gone to a bookshop to provide himself with some books for the campaign, and had spent some time in the shop. "What is it?" he asked. "Oh, your Excellency," said Franz, with difficulty rolling the portmanteau into the vehicle. "We are move on further still. The scoundrel is at our heels again." "Eh? What?" asked Prince Andrew. Bilibin came out to meet him. His usually calm face showed excitement. "There now, confess that this is delightful," said he. "This affair on the Tharber Bridge at Vienna, they have crossed without striking a blow." Prince Andrew could not understand. "But where do you come from not to know what every coachman in town knows?" "I come from the Archduchess's. I heard nothing there." "And you didn't see that everybody is packing up?" "I did not. What is it all about?" inquired Prince Andrew impatiently. "What's it all about? Why, the French have crossed the bridge that Augsburg was defending, and the bridge was not blown up. So Murat is now rushing along the road to Brunn and will be here in a day or two." "What? Here? But why did they not blow up the bridge if it was mined?" "That is what I ask you. Not one, not even Bonaparte, knows why." Bolkonsky shrugged his shoulders. "But if the bridge is crossed, that means that the army too is lost? It will be cut off," said he. "That's just it," answered Bilibin. "Listen. The French entered Vienna, as I told you. Very well. Next day, which was yesterday, those gentlemen, the marshals, Murat, Lens, Billiard, mount and ride to the bridge. Observe that all three are Gascons. 'Gentlemen,' says one of them, 'you know the Thabor bridge is mined and doubly mined, and that there are menacing fortifications at its head, and an army of 15,000 men has been ordered to blow up the bridge and not let us cross? But it will please our sovereign, the Emperor Napoleon, if we take this bridge. So let us three go and take it.' 'Yes, let's,' say the others. And off they go and take the bridge, cross it, and now with their whole army are on this side of the Danube, marching on us, you and your lines of communication." "Stop jesting," said Prince Andrew sadly and seriously. This news grieved him, and yet he was pleased. As soon as he learned that the Russian army was in such a hopeless situation, it occurred to him that it was he who was destined to lead it out of this position. That here was his Toulon, that would lift him from the ranks of the obscure officers and offer him the first step to fame. Listening to Bilibin, he was already imagining how on reaching the army he would give an opinion at the war council, which would be the only one that could save the army, and how he alone would be entrusted with the execution of the plan. "Stop this jesting," he said. "I am not jesting," Bilibin went on. "Nothing is truer or sadder. These gentlemen ride unto the bridge alone and wave white handkerchiefs. They assure the officer on duty that they, the marshals, are on their way to negotiate with Prince Augsburg. He lets them enter the tête de pont. They spin him 1,000 gasconades, saying that the war is over, that the Emperor Francis is arranging a meeting with Bonaparte, that they desire to see Prince Augsburg, and so on. The officer sends for Augsburg. These gentlemen embrace the officers, crack jokes, sit on the cannon, and meanwhile a French battalion gets to the bridge unobserved, flings the bags of incendiary material into the water, and approaches the tête de pont. At length appears the Lieutenant General, our dear Prince Augsburg von Mautern himself. Dearest foe, flower of the Austrian army, hero of the Turkish wars, hostilities are ended, we can shake one another's hand. The Emperor Napoleon burns with impatience to make Prince Augsburg's acquaintance. In a word, those gentlemen, Gascons indeed, so bewildered him with fine words, and he is so flattered by his rapidly established intimacy with the French marshals, and so dazzled by the sight of Murat's mantle and ostrich plumes, that he sees nothing but fire, and forgets the one he was supposed to make of the enemy. In spite of the animation of his speech, Bilibin did not forget to pause after this mot to give time for its due appreciation. The French battalion rushes to the bridgehead, spikes the guns, and the bridge is taken. But what is best of all, he went on, his excitement subsiding under the delightful interest of his own story, is that the sergeant in charge of the cannon, which was to give the signal to fire the mines and blow up the bridge, this sergeant, seeing that the French troops were running onto the bridge, was about to fire, but Lannes stayed his hand. The sergeant, who was evidently wiser than his general, goes up to Augsburg and says, "Prince, you are being deceived. Here are the French." Murat, seeing that all is lost if the sergeant is allowed to speak, turns to Augsburg with feigned astonishment. He's a true Gascon. And he says, "I don't recognize the world-famous Austrian discipline if you allow a subordinate to address you like that." It was a stroke of genius. Prince Augsburg feels his dignity at stake, and orders the sergeant to be arrested. Come, you must own that this affair at the Thabor Bridge is delightful. It is not exactly stupidity, nor rascality. "It may be treachery," said Prince Andrew, vividly imagining the grey overcoats, wounds, the smoke of gunpowder, the sounds of firing, and the glory that awaited him. "Not that either. That puts the court in too bad a light," replied Bilibin. "It's not treachery, nor rascality, nor stupidity. It's just as at Ulm. It is—" He seemed to be trying to find the right expression. It is a bit of Mac. We are Macked, he concluded, feeling that he had produced a good epigram, a fresh one that would be repeated. His hitherto puckered brow became smooth as a sign of pleasure, and with a slight smile he began to examine his nails. "Where are you off to?" he said suddenly to Prince Andrew, who had risen and was going toward his room. "I am going away." "Where to?" "To the army." "But you meant to stay another 2 days." "But now I am off at once." And Prince Andrew, giving directions about his departure, went to his room. "Do you know, mon cher," said Bilíbin, following him, "I have been thinking about you. Why are you going?" And in proof of the conclusiveness of his opinion all the wrinkles vanished from his face. Prince Andrew looked inquiringly at him and gave no reply. "Why are you going? I know you think it is your duty to gallop back to the army now that it is in danger. I understand that, mon cher. It is heroism." "Not at all," said Prince Andrew. "But, as you are a philosopher, be a consistent one. Look at the other side of the question, and you will see that your duty, on the contrary, is to take care of yourself. Leave it to those who are no longer fit for anything else. You have not been ordered to return and have not been dismissed from here. Therefore, you can stay and go with us wherever our ill will takes us. They say we're going to Omsk. And Omsk is a very decent town. You and I will travel comfortably in my calichet." "Do stop joking, Bilíbin," cried Bolkónski. "I am speaking sincerely as a friend. Consider. Where and why are you going, when you might remain here? You are faced by one of two things." And the skin over his left temple puckered. "Either you will not reach your regiment before peace is concluded, or you will share defeat and disgrace with Kutúzov's whole army." And Bilíbin unwrinkled his temple, feeling that the dilemma was insoluble. "I cannot argue about it," replied Prince Andrew coldly, but he thought, "I'm going to go save the army." "My dear fellow, you are a hero," said Bilíbin. Okay, that concludes my reading of chapter 37 of War and Peace. We're going to move right in to my reflection on the same. A Year of War and Peace, Day 37. A Soldier's Duty. Prince Andrew, in a situation we're all despairingly familiar with by now, finds himself confronted with a totally incompetent world leader. This world leader is Emperor Francis of Austria, who speaks to Prince Andrew not to obtain useful information from a reliable source, but rather as if his sole aim were to put a given number of questions. The answer to these questions, as is only too evident, did not interest him. Prince Andrew endures. After all, the good emperor is bestowing upon him an honorable award for services rendered, the Grand Cross of Maria Theresa. It's quite the accomplishment. Prince Andrew can't wait to get back to Bilíbin's to collect his thoughts and write home to his father. His plans are brutally interrupted, however, when he arrives at Bilíbin's only to find that Bilíbin himself is rushing to evacuate. The French, Bilíbin informs Prince Andrew, are now on their side of the Danube, having crossed over the bridge at Augsburg. Brünn will be occupied at any moment. Bilíbin pleads with Prince Andrew to join him in retreat, but Andrew decides against this advice. He will instead, with boastful dreams of saving the day, rejoin Kutúzov and lead the Russians to an improbable victory against the invading French fiends. We began these meditations by thinking about the importance of our roles in life. Today's chapter offers us an opportunity to return to this idea. I'm sure many people, finding themselves in Prince Andrew's position, would have gladly accepted the safe option of joining Bilíbin in retreat. But instead, Prince Andrew decides to fight. Why? Because that's what a soldier would do. In my opinion, Prince Andrew decides to fight because that is his duty, the role of a soldier. In fulfilling this duty, Prince Andrew acts virtuously. Daily meditation. Next to this, if you are a senator of any state, remember that you are a senator. If you are a youth, then a youth. If an old man, then an old man. Each of such names, if it comes to be examined, marks out its proper duties. Epictetus, Discourses. All right, thanks for joining me on my reading today. I had a good time. I hope you did too. Remember that if you'd like to support me, you can do so either by purchasing the ebook, A Year of War and Peace, becoming a patron at patreon.com, or making a one-time donation at PayPal. The links to all those are below. Tomorrow, we'll be reading and reflecting on Chapter 38 of War and Peace. I hope you'll join me. Until then, Take care of yourselves and of others.